The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It's Sunday, the 26th of October, 2025. Welcome to This Week with Mary Holland, CEO and President of Children's Health Defense, and myself, Polly Tommey. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Polly.
First article here from The Defender with Brenda Belletti. 15 Democratic governors form non-partisan alliance to bypass Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s health policies. They want to take public health into their own hands by targeting pandemic preparedness and vaccine coordination. An HHS spokesperson warned that the same states whose COVID-19 policies eroded trust are now trying to reinvent public health under the guise of coordination.
Can't make it up, Polly. As Andrew Nixon, the spokesperson for HHS, says, these are the same states that put masks on toddlers, that, unscientifically closed schools, that required vaccine passports. They are doubling down on the unscientific failed politics of the pandemic. As James Lyons Weiler, the scientist, points out here, there's a problem with the Constitution, with the Supremacy Clause, but it may be, Polly, creating a natural experiment, right? We know that these so-called nonpartisan blue states are actually going to be pushing COVID shots on 6-month-olds. They're going to be pushing pneumococcal shots. They're going to be pushing shots in a way that the red states are not, following the protocols of Kennedy and Trump. And it's going to create a natural experiment. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, frankly.
Yeah, but people are going to get hurt. That's my problem with this.
Oh, Polly, it's horrible. It's horrible. The idea that New Jersey, as we'll discuss right now, is pushing babies 6 months old to get COVID shots is criminal. It is truly criminal. There is absolutely no science that suggests that that is in the interest of those children. Zero. So this is criminal. It's horrible, but it is the reality that the science has become, I think, so politicized from a long time ago. And yet the people who've been following what the CDC, Mandy Cohen is their former CDC head, is one of their advisors. They imagine that what Kennedy is doing is political, but you and I believe that what's happened for decades is highly political, that in fact, they weren't following the science. They were following the corporate agenda. They were following making money. So it's coming to a head. I think in a certain way, Polly, that had to happen, right? Things are becoming, the conflict is becoming more clear. And that's not entirely a bad thing, because I think the truth is going to come out through the adversarial process. I actually do believe that the truth comes out. And I think that's what's happening now.
Okay, Defender, this is in the Government News Watch. It's Fox 40 reporting. Dr. Pan says Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s anti-vaccine healthcare stances led to his congressional campaign. This is Dr. Richard Pan, I think we all know who that is. A former California state legislator talks about what made him want to run for Congress. I decided I wanted to run several weeks ago when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came before the Senate Finance Committee. Pan said, I was getting so many calls saying basically they're taking apart everything you worked on that people worked on here in California. So many calls from probably Big Pharma, I would
no
say.
question. Polly, we go back to 2015 and SB 277 in California, and Dr. Pan has really been an odious figure, a truly odious figure. He is a pediatrician. He is completely aligned with pharma. And I can only hope that he loses. But in point of fact, this article points out that there is a ballot initiative in California, Prop 50, and if it were to pass, his district would be reconfigured and there would be a Democratic majority and he might win. I am no fan of Dr. Pan's.
Again, in Government News watching The Defender, this is Newsweek reporting. White House issues warning over U.S. fertility rate. U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told a White House press briefing that the declining U.S. fertility rate is a national security threat and warned it is not high enough to ensure the American population remains stable. Fertility rates have become a global concern. US fertility hit a new low in 2024 after steadily decreasing over the last decade. So go forth and multiply, people.
It's an interesting story, Polly. Apparently, the rate of fertility right now is 1.6 children per woman, and not so long ago, for replacement, it's 2.1 children. So what it's saying is that the population is going to decline, or the United States has to have a higher level of immigration. He's right that it is a national security question. I mean, the future of the country is at stake when you don't have a stable population. I mean, I guess the United States up until now, Polly, throughout my lifetime, has always been growing up to now over 325 million people. What this suggests is that the population is going to decline. And it's just, it's a very, very different issue than an increasing population.
Mary, I remember when I had my third child, somebody screaming at me saying that I was overpopulating the world, which made me feel terrible. Now I know better on the whole subject, but the main issue we've got here is a massive infertility crisis. I mean,
absolutely. Well, and Polly, you know, we know that many of the vaccines on the schedule are related or maybe causal to infertility. Certainly, I've studied HPV vaccine. It absolutely has a correlation with infertility. The COVID shots, by all appearances, have a very significant correlation. So I think we have to look, and I think we just covered last week the sperm count in men is down 50% over just, 30 years. I mean, it's really pretty shocking how quickly fertility in humans is declining. It's pretty shocking. And we have an amazing film on CHD TV, Polly, Infertility, a Diabolical Agenda, which shows that this has been a national policy of the United States and an international policy of the UN to decrease population. This is not a conspiracy. This is like their stated policy. And what we see in that film that our friend Andy Wakefield did is that the UN lied to women in Kenya, the World Health Organization, I should say specifically, and gave them shots that caused infertility. I mean, that's criminal. That is literally criminal. And I think we have to look more broadly. What are vaccines doing to fertility? And most vaccines have the statement that say that it's not tested for fertility. So there's a real issue here.
Yeah, and not to forget the HPV Gardasil. That's a horrific shocker. Tylenol maker pushes back against FDA warning on pregnancy risks. This is Kenvue, the maker of Tylenol, submitted a 42-page response to the FDA stating that scientific evidence does not support claims of a connection between acetaminophen and autism. Doctors, lawyers, and scientists who support the warning label said Kenvue was known for years the risks of during pregnancy, but rejected the science for fear of triggering more lawsuits.
So kudos to ICANN, Polly. They submitted a petition to the FDA on September 22nd last month, 2 months ago, saying that they believed that there was no basis for the FDA to be permitting Tylenol use in pregnant women, that there should be a warning. The FDA remarkably has not acknowledged that there is a link between Tylenol and problems for pregnant women, even though this article points out that Johnson & Johnson and the FDA have known for years that Tylenol does pose a neurological risk to fetuses. Interestingly, so Kenvue is completely denying what it knows. They bought it from J&J. Apparently, the shares of Kenvue are at an all-time low, according to Bloomberg. So, these issues do have financial implications, which is why they lie, frankly. And what's so troubling here to me, Polly, is it shows that even though the president and Secretary Kennedy are saying there's a real problem with Tylenol, apparently the FDA has not yet acknowledged that.
Suzanne Burdick in the Defender here. Texas doctor will appeal medical board's reprimand over attempt to provide ivermectin to COVID patient. This is Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, an ear, throat, and nose specialist. She said the Texas Medical Board's reprimand doesn't take away her license, so she's basically fighting on principle. She also plans to file 2 lawsuits alleging the board's violated her rights to free speech and due process, and she also plans to work with lawmakers to pass legislation that would prevent hospitals from denying patients requests to consult with outside physicians. And we did have her on Good Morning CHD on Wednesday, and she was fabulous.
Yeah, yay, Mary Bowden. That's great news. She says in this article that she has somebody paying her legal bills. That's critical. This is very expensive. I think it's fantastic that no experts would testify against her. That's fantastic. And she's suing the Federation of State Medical Boards, which have absolutely been terrible actors and trying to prohibit doctors from prescribing ivermectin. We're going to keep following that. That's great news.
Yeah, she's an amazing person. I love the way she fights back and exposes all the people that are really. It's great.
She's tough and she's a fighter. And one of the things that we've learned, Polly, is that courts follow culture. And now that we're 5 years past the beginning of COVID, the courts are much more receptive to the arguments that we and our people bring than they were 5 years ago. 5 years ago, there was that panic and that pervasive fear. That's not the case today. And so I'm very hopeful for these new cases that she's going to bring. And we too have some really important cases that we'll be talking about soon.
Excellent. Okay, Michael Nevadakis in The Defender. Science is on our side. Critics fire back at Associated Press report on wave of anti-science bills. A series of reports from the Associated Press takes issue with the more than 420 anti-science bills introduced in state legislatures across the US. The articles accuse MAHA advocates of finding ways to profit from the legislation, but reporters fail to mention the $293.7 million spent on lobbying by Big Pharma in 1 year alone. That's disgraceful. What a terrible, shocking waste of money.
Yeah. Well, as Sayer G points out here, what they're saying, Polly, is really projection. What we've been living with for decades is not pro-science. It is not based on science. What we've been living with for decades is, in fact, anti-science. So they're calling us what is true about themselves. But these bills are really good bills. And this article quotes Leah Wilson of Stand for Health Freedom, Sayer G of Global Health Forum, Steve Kirsch of Vaccine Safety Research Foundation. It's really fantastic that there are so many good bills in states right now, and some of them are getting passed. 30 bills have been adopted. So they can complain all they want, and they can keep doing what they're doing, which is to try to get rid of Secretary Kennedy. But in point of fact, the MAHA movement is making real progress.
Okay, Suzanne Burdick in The Defender. It's an exclusive for The Defender. California Medicaid provider pays parents hundreds of dollars to vaccinate their kids, hundreds of dollars in gift cards when their children get certain vaccines. Critics say the program is undermining informed consent by turning important medical decisions into financial ones for low-income families. We've seen this. We've been reporting on this over the years.
There's apparently a phrase that's attributed to Charlie Munger, who worked with Warren Buffett, that says, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes. This is about getting poor parents who are on Medicaid for their children to get those children vaccinated. And we know that these vaccines, particularly the pneumococcal, flu, rotavirus, HPV that they're pushing, these cause severe injuries. They can cause death. It's hard not to look at this as a kind of eugenics, that they're really targeting poor people with these vaccines, which cause so many problems, if not death. And posters are apparently in every Medicaid office in California. This is outrageous. I mean, and it is a blatant violation of informed consent. If you read the Nuremberg Code, the very first article is, no duress, no coercion, no deception, no inducements. There can be nothing except giving people the truth and letting them decide, do they want this medical intervention or not? There should be nothing like this happening. This is disgraceful, and it's incredibly dangerous.
Brenda Belletti in The Defender. New CDC work group to study aluminium, whichever way you want to say that, in childhood vaccines. ACIP, the CDC's panel of vaccine advisors, has formed a new working group. It's going to review the agency's childhood vaccine schedule, and the group will examine the timing and order of recommended vaccines, the cumulative impact of the schedule, and the safety of aluminum adjuvants in particular, and their link to asthma. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, Brian Hooker, our chief science officer, said, this is welcome news, although incredibly overdue. It's exactly right.
City health officials tied to Soros urge public to get vaccinated. They blame policy shifts for deadly outbreaks. Financial reports show that Soros and other big pharma investors, including Bill Gates, finance the big cities health coalition. So again, just bringing out, exposing all of that again.
Yeah, just going after people. It's pathetic.
Okay, Toby Rogers in The Defender, and his headline is Wait, What? The New York Times finally admits genetics can't explain surge in autism. The mainstream narrative on autism is crumbling before our eyes, says Toby Rogers, PhD. The New York Times reported that genetic mutations account for only about 30% of autism cases. The admission opens the door to fully examining the role toxic exposures might play in autism. Again, long overdue.
If you read one article, I'd read this one this week. This is a fabulous article by Toby. He said, just very quietly, the New York Times, which has been telling us for decades policy, vaccines is caused by genes and we have to study the genes. And we're saying, no, it's the environment. And they're like, oh, you people are tinfoil hat, you're crazy. Here, they just very quietly admit, well, it's at most 30%. No, maybe it's actually more like 25%. And so the obvious conclusion is, well, it has to be environmental, what is driving the rise in autism. And as he says here, the paper of record, the New York Times, has abandoned the genetic narrative. We are winning the debate. The genie is out of the bottle. Autism is not genetic. Keep telling the truth, and we will stop this epidemic. So it's a great article. Kudos to Toby.
This is Focal Points. A 2.23 million person study finds pneumococcal vaccines increase the risk of pneumonia and death. The vaccines are given to nearly every US child and senior, and the authors found that recipients of both PCV13 and PPSV23 were significantly more likely to be hospitalized for pneumonia and more likely to die from pneumonia-related causes compared to the unvaccinated counterparts.
Kudos to Nick Hulsher, who's a young epidemiologist working for the McCullough Foundation. And this is so important. This is a study that basically says if you take a pneumococcal vaccine, which is supposed to prevent pneumonia, you're more likely to get pneumonia. And we've seen this with the flu vaccines, and we've seen this with the COVID vaccines. And as he points out, babies are supposed, since 2010, so just for 15 years, they're supposed to get 4 doses of pneumococcal shots before they're 15 months old. And this is a study of older people, 2.23 million. These are people over age 50. But, these shots increase the risk of pneumonia and the risk of death. What are we doing? What are we doing? So this is a great, really important study that, in my mind, absolutely goes along with so many other studies that show us that the result of these shots are exactly the opposite of what they say they are.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see that, because that is what we heard over and over again on the bus. They took the shots, it gave them whatever it was supposed to prevent them from getting,
exactly.
Or killed them,
exactly.
or made them seriously ill.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay, this is Big Pharma Watch in The Defender. New Jersey plans free COVID-19 vaccine clinics for children. This is New Jersey Spotlight News reporting this. So the Department of Health in New Jersey says it plans to buy COVID-19 vaccines for children under the age of 3 after some families reported problems getting their children vaccinated with the updated shots. They know not what they do, Mary. And I'm not sure I believe it. I can't think of many people in this day and age that's running around trying to get a COVID shot for that under 3-year-old.
I wish that were correct, Polly. Remember that New Jersey is the capital for the pharmaceutical industry in the United States. So I believe the propaganda there is very strong. And I sadly think there are going to be people who are going to go get them. And there's probably going to be inducements there too, Polly. Get your $100 gift card. And, $100, $200 for a lot of people, that's a lot of money. So it's tragic. It's really tragic. They do know not what they do. Certainly the parents don't know what they're doing.
In The Defender here, she pushed Idaho to ban all medical mandates. Now she's setting her sights on the nation. The Idaho Medical Freedom Act, written by Leslie Mnuchin, makes it illegal to require anyone to get a vaccine or receive any other medical intervention. She and her allies aim to make Idaho's law a nationwide standard. The most basic and fundamental of human rights is the right to direct our own medical treatment, Mnuchin said. And we love Leslie Mnuchin.
We do. And I think she did something very important in Idaho, which was to kind of leapfrog over the vaccine issue in light of COVID, which was not just about vaccines, it was about the drugs, it was about the tests, it was about the lockdowns, and to say no medical measures can be forced on people, not a shutdown, not a test, not a vaccine, not a drug. And yeah, Leslie's done a fantastic job. And so I am quoted in this article. They asked me, well, oh my God, what are we going to do about the pro-vaxxers who want their kids to be with only vaccinated children? I said, they can still do that. They can create a private membership association. They can be the learning program of the Church of Vaccinia, and everybody has to have a vaccine. That's not a problem. But what you can't do now in Idaho is compel medicine, and that's great.
Those poor kids, I wouldn't want to be born into that pro-vaccine family and put into a school full of vaccinated kids. That's just awful.
Well, Polly, as soon as it becomes more obvious, it's going to stop, right? What we've been living with for, the decades that we've been in this fight is that the truth has been so suppressed. You have that school of the Church of Vaccinia, those kids are going to be slower in their academic stuff. They're not going to be as social. They're going to get sick more often. Some of them may be catastrophically ill. And then the public starts to see, oh my God, the kids who aren't vaccinated are phenomenal. They're doing great. And the kids that are hyper-vaccinated are doing poorly. Once it's clear to people, people make good decisions. The problem for us is that we've all been gaslit, and the people like us have been censored. This is really the problem, because I do believe in people's common sense. People do make good decisions when you give them good information. We just have all been getting terrible information for hundreds of years on this issue.
Dr. Joseph McCullough in The Defender, is pharma bribing doctors to prescribe drugs for multiple sclerosis? In a study published in the BMJ Open, 5,809 doctors, 78.5% of the study population, received at least one payment from a drug company during the 5-year study window, adding up to $163.6 million in total. Even $50 payments slightly influenced prescribing patterns, while $5,000 payments nearly doubled the likelihood of favoring specific company drugs. And again, money, it's the same old thing, whether it's vaccines, drugs, it's just the same old thing, Mary. Bribing.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Doctors are absolutely bribed. And I think most people don't really still get this, Polly. Again, this is not information in mainstream media, but this was a study of neurologists related to multiple sclerosis. Almost 80% of these doctors are taking bribes from pharma. I mean, there's no way that they're not going to be influenced by that. That's just ridiculous. And, it's like, are they being influenced? Well, of course they're being influenced, or pharma wouldn't be paying them money. I mean, it's obvious when you see it that this is not based on truth. This is based on money. But most people don't have access to this information.
I was talking to Brian Hooker yesterday about how Big Pharma owns the medical schools that the doctors go to. They're basically walking around with Merck manuals. They are basically being trained not to be doctors anymore, but to be pharmaceutical salespeople. And that's a problem for us, the people.
Oh, it's huge, Polly, which is why it's so important that people consider, and I think we do a good job here, you do a good job on CHD-TV, people need to consider naturopaths, they need to consider chiropractors, they need to consider acupuncturists, they need to consider homeopaths, they need to understand that mainstream medicine is one pro-pharmaceutical allopathic model, right? There's something wrong with your body and they're going to fix it with a petrochemical based drug. That is what mainstream medicine is. It's not Ayurvedic. It's not, there's so many different anthroposophical. There are so many different perspectives on medicine, most of which are way less toxic and often at least as effective, if not more effective.
Defender here. Florida governor slams proposal to engineer meat allergies in humans to save the planet. This is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He criticized a bioethicist's video suggesting humans could be engineered to develop a red meat allergy, linking the idea to the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, genetically engineering humans to become allergic to meat because some elites think people eat too much of it is insane, DeSantis wrote, and he is right. I am with him 100%.
I am too. Yeah, good for him. I mean, this is so ridiculous. It's so crazy. Literally, they want to develop an autoimmune disorder, an allergy in people that's going to cause anaphylaxis so that they won't eat red meat. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't make it up. But kudos to DeSantis for just calling them out. It's crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff. Okay, this is US Right to Know in the Defender. Over 300 toxic chemicals, including drugs and pesticides, found in baby clothes. Analysis of 43 infant garments is the first to comprehensively screen for all detectable chemicals versus a limited number. In total, 303 different chemicals, from traces of pesticides to prescription drugs, were identified across the fabrics. So everybody listen up. You need to buy from your charity shops where they've already been washed lots. And
That's
it's
true.
good recycling.
Yeah.
You're buying
Yeah.
all these
No,
chemicals.
you're absolutely right. It's outrageous that they're filled with so many horrible things for kids.
It's awful. And just to say, I buy my grandchildren's clothes from charity shops, and
Yeah.
because Billy likes to go in them.
Well,
And
they're nice and soft. Yeah, they're fun shops. I love those kinds of shops.
it's so much fun. You find absolutely beautiful little things as well.
I agree. I agree.
There's that. All right, Suzanne Burdick in the Defender. Historic New Mexico town block cell tower after consulting lawyer featured in the Defender. Residents of San Cristobal, New Mexico, blocked construction of a 195-foot cell tower after learning from an expert that developers often exaggerate coverage gaps to justify new towers. They argued the project was unnecessary, violated county land use rules, and would harm the community's character and wildlife.
Polly, this is fantastic. So this is a community near Taos, New Mexico, that read an article in Defender on September 18th, reached out to the lawyer mentioned in that article, Robert Berg, and on September 19th, they hired him, and then they won in the Taos Board of Commissioners that voted 3-2 against this tower. A 195-foot tower is going to have huge implications for the wildlife, for the health, for the scenic qualities of a town. So this is really kudos. This is two big wins for our CHD Stop 5G initiative in the last 2 months. They've stopped these huge 130-foot in Sitka, Alaska, 190-foot, 95-foot tower in New Mexico indirectly. This one wasn't through working with CHD, but they found out about this lawyer and they hired him. So this is fantastic news that it's working, right? Pushing back against telecom to say, no, you can't just put a tower anywhere you want, even though now the industry is trying to be more aggressive and try to get a new rule from the Federal Communications Commission. But no, you can't just plop down a tower in the middle of a residential area that could cause strokes, that could cause migraines, that could cause cancers, that could cause all kinds of things, not only to humans, but to all the animals, to all the wildlife. You can't just do that. And so 2 big wins in 2 months. It's really exciting.
Good stuff. Okay, Suzanne Burdick in the Defender. Study links surge in children's memory problems to wireless radiation exposure. Children and teens in Sweden and Norway are experiencing an alarming rise in memory problems, according to the authors of a new peer-reviewed study that linked the issue to increased exposure to wireless radiation. Radiation exposure must be reduced and people must be informed about the associated health risks, one of the study's authors said. Yes, this is something that, again, our AMR department have been talking about for some time.
Polly, this is an incredible study. This is horrifying. So this is a scientist, Dr. Hardell, who has been involved in environmental toxic exposures for decades. This is somebody who was outspoken about Agent Orange a long time ago. And they are finding that the children in Sweden, looking at it from 2010 to 2024, so over a 14-year span, the children with mild cognitive impairment have increased over 60 times. That is unreal. They're not saying that the only reason is the radiation exposure in schools, but that the radiation exposure, i.e. wireless, is having a big role. And what they're calling for is to reduce the wireless exposure in schools. This is really exciting, and the study is really frightening. 60 times more children with brain damage, basically.
Yeah, awful. Okay, this is in Government News Watch in the Defender. FDA and Merck accused of covering up hair loss pills suicide link. So the hair loss drug finasteride has long been tied to depression and suicide, but researchers say regulators have ignored the warnings. The drug effect on the brain can be devastating. It has, again, been associated with depression and suicide, but for more than 20 years. You take a pill because your hair's falling out, and then you want to kill yourself. No.
Polly, that the FDA and Merck have been hiding this information for 20 years. It's appalling. It's absolutely criminal. You're committing people, you're knowingly leading people to death. That is just outrageous. It's really beyond comprehension, but I guess it's not. It's the banality of evil. This is Hannah Arendt. This is the banality of evil. Oh, we'll make more money if we'll keep this on the market and we won't have a warning. Too bad for the people who become depressed and suicidal. We'll just pretend that we don't know.
We've been doing this show for over 4 years, and which I can't believe. We started off on Facebook, but we've been doing, and if you look at the thread of our shows over those 4 years, it's been virus, scary, this is happening, get you back, all of this. This show today is all about, if you look at it, everything is coming out.
Right.
It's really a show of, actually, I know it's sad, but good news in a way, because everything is being put out there in the front.
That's what we started with, Polly, today. It's coming to a head, right? The opposition, this is a big issue, right? The people who are going to say, no, I want the truth. And the people who are like, no, I want to stick with the lies, right? I think that the lies are the truth, but they want to stick with them, the 15 governors. It's all coming to the surface, and that is a good thing.
It is. Well, let's talk about our $1 million match. This is a great article, Mary, by you. And it says, my son is a prisoner in his own body. Vaccine injury is real and preventable. Children's Health Defence has been sounding the alarm about vaccine injuries since our inception. We are reaching more parents, more doctors, more scientists, and more politicians every day with our message. Vaccine injury is real and preventable. All of that is great, and it's true. And we are reaching more people. And it's thanks to you, the viewers, and everybody that donates to us to keep us going. Because we're not pharmaceutically funded.
We are definitely not pharmaceutically funded. Thank goodness. We're also not government funded. We're also not corporate funded. We are funded by you. We are funded by the people who need this information, who care about this information. And we are so grateful for all that you do. October is our $1 million match, our fall match, and we do need your help. If this is valuable to you, I know there are so many other competing things for your money and your support, but if this is important to you to find out what's really going on in this health freedom space, then we do need help from you to keep us going. It does cost money to do what we do. It does take a big staff to put out the Defender every day, to put out CHD TV every day, to do the litigation that we're doing, to do the science that we're doing. So we're incredibly grateful. I would also say that we are sold out for our conference November 7 to 9, which is really extraordinary. But the good news is, if you like value, then I really encourage you to go over and sign up for the online version of the conference, which will be on November 8 and 9. And for $77, you can get access live to the conference, and you'll be able to save that and watch it whenever you want. So if it's not convenient on November 8th and 9th, no worries. You will have the conference there. So that's $77. I actually think that's a terrific bargain. We're going to have incredible speakers: Senator Ron Johnson, Senator Rand Paul, Congressman Dave Weldon, Catherine Austin Fitts, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, panel after panel. It's going to be an amazing 2-day event, $77 to get online access. So I encourage that. If you prefer to do that, but do something. If this matters to you, sign up for the online conference or give us a donation towards our $1 million match. We can't do what we do without financial resources.
That's right. I'm very excited to be moderating the measles panel. So we've got Dr. Ben Edwards and Brian Hooker, and we've got the parents of Daisy, who was tragically killed in the hospital, which they say was killed from measles. But they're going to be there as well. And the Mennonite community, a lot of them are coming from there. So I'm very excited about
That's awesome. And I'm excited. I'm going to be moderating the Vax panel. Polly, you're going to be getting together with Andy Wakefield, Brian Hooker, and Del Bigtree for the first time since the movie came out to tell me, as the moderator, what impact did it have? Why did you do it? How did it change your lives? What's next? I'm really looking forward to that one.
It's quite an incredible story, really. So yeah, be good to get back and do that. 10 years since we were making vax. So lots has happened since then. And here I am at Children's Health Defense now.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to have you. And happy to have all of you watchers and viewers. And I look forward to seeing many of you there in Austin, Texas, beginning of November, just a little bit less than 2 weeks away. But please help us if you can. We're so grateful.
Very grateful. All right, everyone. Well, I will be with you tomorrow morning for Good Morning CHD. But for now, Mary and I say pray big, stand firm, never settle, and we'll see you soon. We wonder why our government are not putting this as the number one emergency in the world. Because it affects them and their kids too. So surely they would want to stop this, but you're saying it's not happening.
They're the ones doing it. Why would they stop what they're doing in the first place? Again, and this is where people need to understand, and they need to look back at history at what all governments do. They're all corrupt, directly in proportion to the size and strength of the government. So where does that put the United States? So if we look back, even with our own military, our own troops, again, everything from Agent Orange in Vietnam spraying our own soldiers along with countless innocent civilians, or historical footage, Polly, you've seen the detonation of the nuclear bombs in Nevada, right? The troops that are in the ditches, they jump out of the ditches and they run toward the blast site. They were told to run toward the blast center. Every one of those U.S. military members died an early, painful, protracted death from their radiation exposure. We now know from those detonations in Nevada, no less than 500,000 Americans eventually died from the downstream fallout. How many Americans know that? So they don't care about the consequences of their actions, even to themselves. And that's key, because too many people walk away from an issue like this because they convince themselves, because they're so afraid of mortality, and we're trained to be afraid of our own mortality, petrified, something to be avoided at all costs. So anything that's an existential threat, people ram their head in the sand and deny it. But people convince themselves this can't be happening because they wouldn't do this to themselves. Polly, have you ever heard that? Common excuse for total denial. They already have done this to themselves. They've detonated 2,400 nuclear bombs all over the globe, contaminating everything. And they look at, they meaning those who print the money, by the way. The occupants of political posts, even the White House, are simply puppets in the play. And I don't care who they are. I don't care how much power it appears they have. They're on the end of strings. So any notion that this administration or any other is going to stop what our government is doing behind the scenes is a naive notion. And now, at this point, the climate engineering, aka weather warfare operations, are being ramped up to ever higher levels. Contamination is ever worse. And they're not going to stop because this is a covert weapon of control for them. It's their crown jewel weapon of control, by which they can decimate populations and then blame nature. They're not going to stop unless we stop them.
And how can we stop them? Every week I ask you the same question, Dane, because that's what everyone's asking. What can we do?
It won't come from sitting the bench. And everyone from their own home computer can do an immense amount of good in this fight by sharing credible data from a credible source. Send out a link to the Geoengineering documentary, The Dimming. That is the standard on this issue. 26 million views and counting in spite of social media censorship. That's the A to Z in this issue. Send a link to elected officials, agency officials, the heads of environmental groups. The list is endless. And CC as many other aware and awake individuals as you can. Openly CC them, write a peaceful and professional letter, and ask whoever you send this to, why aren't they addressing this greatest and most immediate threat short of nuclear cataclysm? Why not? And when you CC all those additional people, whoever you send the link to knows many are listening to that conversation and awaiting their reply. Bottom line is critical mass of awareness. That's the only way to stop this, bringing it to the full light of day so our military brothers and sisters that are being told they're doing something benevolent, something for the common good, realize they are participating in their own near-term demise. In addition to the environmental destruction, the weather cataclysms, we're breathing what they're spraying, Polly. And now we know polymer nanoparticles, key component of climate engineering. We now know from recent science study that every human brain they test has about 0.5% nanoparticles in the brain. That's 0.5% in human brains across the board. What's that doing to us? So people don't realize what they're inhaling with every breath they take because nanoparticles are so small, they're not visible to the naked eye. Radiation's not visible. Does that mean it's not harmful? No. So people need to wake up and stop pretending their lives are going to continue as they are if they just don't do anything and pretend someone else is moving the fight up the field. It's going to take all of us.
We are live. Okay, tell everyone your name.
Jordan, and this is Nash.
And Nash is how old?
He's 3.
Right, let's talk about this story. This is vitally important because none of this is okay. Let's go back. He's your 3rd child. Talk us through exactly what happened.
So our story kind of starts back in 2019. My best friend, her brother-in-law had been diagnosed with leukemia at a really young age, had young kids of his own, and that kind of sent her through a rabbit hole of vaccines, and she had ultimately at that point decided that they were not safe and effective. And she threw all of this information at me. At the time, my middle child was 1, and I thought she was crazy. I ignored every time she tried to tell me about it. She sent me every link, Facebook group, anything you could think of before everything was censored, of course. And well, fast forward to the end of 2019, and we were both pregnant. And then a couple months later, COVID happened in our area. And they really, obviously, we quarantined, we did what we were supposed to do at the time. And they started talking about a COVID vaccine really quickly, and that didn't sit right with me. So I started asking her questions because I was due in July of 2020 with him. And she again sent me everything that I could think of to read and just educate myself. Well, I had ultimately decided to do a delayed schedule. So when he was born in July, we did Hep B at birth. And at 2 and 4 months, we did polio and DTaP. And then at 6 months, we did DTaP. Well, in December of 2020, a month prior to his 6-month well check, we had a conversation. And I'll never forget it. I still have the text message. Her exact words were, "The DTaP makes me cringe." And she explained why. And that conversation really sat with me for the following month because that's what I had planned to give him at his 6-month well check. Well, then on January 22nd of 2021, his appointment was that day. And we met with his pediatrician. Everything was great. He told me he was perfect. I hit on every milestone. And then asked me which, if any, vaccines we were doing that day. He was totally on board with my schedule. If I didn't want to do any, he was fine with that too. He was not a pushy, he was a very pro-choice pediatrician. And I hesitated, and I was like, we're going to do DTaP today. Even though I fought myself for the last 4 weeks on whether or not to give it to him. So we waited a few minutes. The nurse came in and she said, "Mom, are you ready?" I looked at him, I looked at her. I almost stopped her from doing it, and I didn't. She injected his left leg, and we went about our day. 13 short days later, he woke up from nap at daycare, not breathing correctly. It was a super small in-home daycare him and his brother went to with just her kids and one other one. I was already on my way over to her house because I was off work for the afternoon when she texted me and she said something is wrong. And well, within a minute, I was in her apartment, and I picked him up out of her arms because his lips and his chest were all blue because he wasn't getting adequate oxygen. So I held him out in front of me to open up his airway, and his color started to come back a little bit, but you could still tell that he was struggling, and he was still moving everything at that point. But within a minute or two, his arms fell back behind him, and he just went completely limp. We waited for EMTs to get there. They rushed us to our local ER, and they ended up intubating him to do a CT scan and run all of these different tests possible, and everything was clear. Everything was normal. So they were like, "We have called for life flight. We're sending you to Children's Hospital," which was 2.5 hours away. So life flight showed up. My husband and I they wouldn't let me on the helicopter. So my husband and I raced to the children's hospital. We actually beat the helicopter there. Yeah. So they admitted him to the ICU immediately, and then took him down for an MRI. It's like 3 a.m. at this point after everything has happened. And MRI is finished. The doctor came and sat us down and flat out told us, she said, this can be caused by a vaccine. This can be caused by a virus. And I will never forget the look that I gave my husband. Like, my heart just sank. I knew he wasn't sick. And he wasn't sick. I have plenty of pictures and videos to prove that he was not sick. But he had a vaccine 13 days prior. And she was like, this is polio, is what. And I'm so mad I didn't get any of this on video. I wish I would have, but.
She said, this is polio.
Yeah. She was like, this is polio. But nowadays, it's called acute flaccid myelitis or transverse myelitis. These are the 2 diagnoses that they give nowadays. It's no longer considered polio.
And he's about 7 months at this point.
He was 6.5 months. Yeah, right. And he went paralyzed, neck down.
Neck down.
Neck down. Yep. So we initially were on the ventilator.
I'm just having
No,
we're not going to look. We're not going to do that.
He was on the ventilator for a while. We're not on it anymore, thankfully, unless he's really sick with a respiratory virus and needs it. And he has a G button for feeding. He's partially tube fed. He does eat some by mouth. But in the beginning, we were on the ventilator full time and eating by tube full time. So it's slow. His progress is slow, but he's come a long way in 2.5 years.
And look, you've got in your bag there, you've got all this sort of stuff. Talk us through what that's all about.
So this is his suction machine. He's not strong enough to cough up his own secretions. He doesn't have a cough anymore because those muscles were all paralyzed. And so if he can't, you'll usually hear it. It's pretty gurgly, but I'll just show you. You even need one, so it's perfect. But we just put it up here, and this suctions out his lungs because he can't get it out himself. And now he can breathe again.
And how often do you have to do that?
It just kind of depends. We just recently switched to the cap full time, so we're 24/7 capping now, meaning he is breathing fully on his own. Thankfully, we do expect the trach to come out someday. So beforehand, there were sometimes he would go 3 days without needing a suction. But now that we've switched over to the cap full time, it's at least 10 to 15 times a day right now until he can get used to the new humidity change, and there's just a lot with it when you make changes.
So he's 3 years old right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what is his life like, honestly? What is this one shot done to your child?
We are in therapy 3 hours a day right now. He does OT and PT Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 12:30. After that, we eat lunch. Usually, he sometimes naps.
Does he eat?
By mouth?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah, he's about 50-50 by mouth right now. We actually meet with a new speech therapist next week, so hopefully that'll change here quickly. But
and
we
his
watch
hands
a lot of TV.
talk to me about his hands.
So his lesion on his spinal cord went from the bottom of the brainstem down to T7 vertebrae. So it was the entire top half of his spinal cord that was damaged. And a lot of his lesion was on the posterior part of his spinal cord, meaning it affected a lot of the sensation nerves versus the motor nerves. So elbows down is very numb. He doesn't have a whole lot of feeling or sensation from elbows down. So his hands just dangle. They don't, he doesn't have any movement of his hands. But elbows up, he does have feeling, and his biceps fully work.
And you have to keep, I notice you'll keep putting his head up.
Yeah, he likes to.
Because he can't control that totally by himself?
He's not 100% yet, no. But when we moved to Louisville last March, he didn't have any head control at all. But then he started at Fraser Rehab here, and within 3 months had at least 50% head control back. So we're about 90% head control, but he just likes to fall and rock.
So does he live in this chair?
Pretty much. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. He's in this chair quite often. Yes, it fits in the stroller nicely. So it's just. But we just got a new wagon that he sits in now. We just started using it this week because we just got it last week, and he really likes it. He sits more upright, and he's able to see and move his head back and forth. And so we're hoping to get rid of this chair sometime soon. But yes, as far as like eating and things, we sit him in this because it keeps him.
Now, did you file in the vaccine adverse?
I do. Yeah, we do have a case in the VICP right now, and they're still working on gathering all of our medical records and things like that because we've seen. I mean, he now has like 10 different doctors, specialists, just to make sure he's healthy and safe. So we've been to 8 different hospitals in between inpatient rehab and therapy and all
So
of that.
when the media screams out about polio, get your polio shot, when they scream out about that after what's happened to your beautiful child, what goes through your mind?
It makes my blood boil, and it makes me very sad that people still fall for it, but at the same time I also understand because before he was injured, that was me. I didn't know, and I thought those people were crazy, and you don't realize it until you're a part of this community. Until you're a part of the injured community, you don't understand how many people out there really are.
What happened to Nash should be enough to take that shot right off the market. But none of us know about what happened to your son.
Right.
Because they hide it.
Yep.
You're having another baby.
Yeah. Very, very unexpected, but we're excited.
And he's number 3, so I presume the other 2, your children, were vaccinated up until the time you stopped. What's going to happen with this baby?
This one will not be vaxxed at all. I will not get any during pregnancy. Actually, that appointment is coming up next week for them to offer the Tdap and flu and all the things. And yeah, I'm not looking forward to that conversation, but yes, we are no longer doing anything ever for any of us.
I know that our viewers are very angry right now because this is not okay. No, this is not
It's
okay.
not.
And Nash, we love you. And we're sorry this happened. Beautiful boy. It's
And-
not okay.
He's still happy, though. I'm very thankful for that. He's very chill, and
Well, because you're an excellent mother.
thank you.
Okay, viewers, that was distressing. But Nash, just know you're getting so much love from us all at Children's Health Defence and all our viewers. Thank you for telling the story.
Yes, thank you for having us.